Welcome to the 39th edition of Stump the Pastor. Our question today comes from Janice in Minneapolis, and she asks, does the Bible ever say that Jesus had dark skin or olive skin? Well, first of all, I just want to say what a great question. I would imagine that the vast majority of white American Christians never thought to raise a question about the ethnicity of Jesus. I mean, the image in my mind growing up was that Jesus was blue-eyed, fair-skinned, with shades of blonde in his brown hair. Now, I grew up in a fairly educated congregation, so I was clearly told that we didn't have any actual pictures of Jesus, only artist renditions. And since there were lots of pictures of Jesus included in Sunday school materials and hanging on the walls, I also knew that Jesus never looked alike in those pictures. He had different features and haircuts, but he always had Caucasian features. And even when I saw pictures where Jesus had darker features, I assumed it was a tan. I never thought to question that Jesus wasn't Caucasian. I don't know that I ever consciously thought that Jesus looked like me because he never resembled my family features. But those pictures, those images I was given, did reinforce an unconscious association of Jesus with my race. It even sounds odd now to think about because those unspoken assumptions seemed to be held by everyone I knew. It was no more question than wondering if the sun would rise in the morning. It didn't have to be said. And that is why questions are such an important part of Christian development. The questions we know to ask and the questions that challenge our assumptions. And let's be real here. We all have assumptions. Because assumptions are a normal part of life. They help us to navigate life without having to think a lot. That's great in some situations. Not so great in other situations. Assumptions are great when you're driving. Everyone knows what side of the road to use. We all know what a red light means or a blinker on a car ahead of us. We don't have to wonder about those things. Assumptions help us navigate the usual by not being distracted by the unimportant. So assumptions are great for driving. They are bad in a faith journey. The last few weeks have shown how deadly assumptions can be, particularly in Black lives, because of our culture's unacknowledged assumptions. Actually, our American culture has been deadly for Black lives for centuries because of unacknowledged assumptions by white people. So the answer to Janice's question is we don't know what Jesus looked like. It would be more likely that he had olive skin or dark skin. That was what the people he came from looked like. He was certainly not Northern European or European American. He was Middle Eastern. And asking questions like these about our assumptions mean that we can find better ways to see ourselves in Jesus than those old pictures. Because let's face it, I want to see Jesus in myself, don't you? I hope to see Jesus in how I live, in whom I love, what moves me to action, and with whom I stand when justice is questioned. The best way I know to be a Christian, which means to be Christ-like, has nothing to do with the melatonin in my skin, but the character in my heart. Assumptions are sometimes hard to recognize in our lives, and even harder to manage when we go about life without recognizing them, without thinking about how our assumptions are formed and what they do to us and others when they are never questioned. So I am so glad that you are asking these kinds of questions. Janice, I hope we create a world that has room for questions. And I hope that when our questions lead us to new insight, we help each other recognize the new vision and live into it in ways that values others and values the ways the Spirit expands our awareness. So keep the questions coming. See you next time on Stump the Pastor. Well, thanks for your question, Janice. It was great to hear from you. I hope to hear from more of you with your questions. Send them to me. My email address is on the bottom of your screen. And we'll get to your questions soon on Stump the Pastor.